Your Excellencies. Good afternoon. We were exploring the feasibility of Namibia as a synthetic fuel hub, I would say, in the southern hemisphere. And we said, what do we need to look at to assess whether it's feasible? And we've really made four main key considerations. One is the input resources. And given that green hydrogen is fairly established as a resource in Namibia, we said the second resource, which is CO2, could be sourced from biomass, local biomass, and there's been a lot of research already to validate the feasibility and availability of the resource. What needs to be validated, however, is the qualification and expectation in terms of making sure this biomass is as green as possible in presenting that. And given that Namibia has abundant resources in terms of solar and green hydrogen, we believe the process of producing the CO2 from biomass as a primary resource can possibly be validated as a green generated CO2 resource effectively that can then be merged with the green hydrogen to produce the synthetic fuel. The second factor we've taken in consideration is Namibia as an investment destination. Security of investments is important for any investor. Nobody wants to place their investment in a place where 6 months later there's disruption and they need to demobilize what they have mobilized. And that is what Namibia presents as a case. We have very friendly relations, basically with most countries globally. I think as is evident today in this process, the bilateral and multilateral engagements that Namibia have are actually paving a way for private sector investment to basically go on a carpet that is easier and smoother in terms of promoting investments. Therefore, we say that this particular support that is currently happening now is an affirmation of that. The third thing we've looked at is demand, and we said, look, there is adequate global demand in terms of large off-takers, mainly in the northern hemisphere. Regionally, there's integration that can happen on off-take to some degree, and I think Sasol is a good case to cite here. As an industrial producer of synthetic fuels that can convert into green synthetic fuels generation. But of course, there will be a level of small demand, but ultimately, the scale in terms of market demand can definitely mitigate the cost of investment to make this a very feasible investment. But there are other alternative markets, especially off-takers that may want to take up the synthetic fuels and promote that as a carbon offsetting mechanism. The fourth point that we've realized is infrastructure, and this was mentioned by previous speakers, the need to look at infrastructure investment, and the current MOU under discussion between Namport and Rotterdam is a good business case to ensure that as the ecosystem is being unpacked, it also takes consideration for the possibility of inbounding and outbounding CO2 or the final product as synthetic fuels. We take note of the fact that the green valleys are very far from the primary source of biomass, but there could be other efficient measures, such as looking at what already happened or is already being developed with other bilateral partners, such as the German government through GIZ, with the development of the biomass industrial park. So therefore, we're saying we're not starting at ground zero. There is some work that's already done, and there's an opportunity to build on this. In the scope of that, we're saying that to move forward, there has been a level of emphasis already on skill development and the gap. You've seen from the young lady that's spoken forward, Namibia needs a lot of support, and as well as from Desperate, that we need support in promoting and taking along youth and creating opportunities for them to be skilled. The second thing that we've said as a condition precedent is obviously more feasibilities in affirming some of these business cases, but from a high-level perspective, there is definitely a good business case to say it's worth making the investment. Therefore, as we move forward, it is important then to make sure that the partnerships that are being developed with partners that recognize reciprocity as well as the value that local participants can bring to the table. Namibia has established itself as a competitive market for developing resources, including synthetic fuels, and therefore there is need to ensure that the local market value add is optimized to the extent that we're looking at final products and build with partners that wants to move along, not just in terms of financial returns, but also social returns.